Great. I have one comment and one question. And the question was for you. You said that you give away some of the stuff. Do you have resale shops or something that you do with the rest of it, or what do you do with the clothes?
Oh, usually we get people, like, I've worked with organizations and schools. We don't have resale shops, actually. Like organizations, churches, schools I've worked with. I have teachers come in and they do, we call it book dumpster diving. So, like, teachers know what they want for their students, like what reading level, and I didn't. I used to just give away, like, I would sort the books and stuff, and teach Shoesmith, Beulah Elementary School, actually out here in Hyde Park. One of our partners, she reached out to us. She's in the community council member, local school council, sorry. And she basically went book diving and ended up with like a truck full of books that they exchange at school. So anybody who asks and reaches out to me while I'm at a tabling event, like, I usually tell them. And then winter coats and books, toys. Usually I work with aldermen. Like, around Christmas time, I get phone calls from them from the previous year, and they're like, Mary, we need this, you know, this many toys and this many books that we need to give out. And I'm just like, okay, I'm like basically Santa Claus during Christmas time. So, you know, again, these are good, reasonable items. Actually, when I first started working at Gaia, I mean, like, the economy was good. It was like 3 years ago, you know, so people were like, just, I mean, it was amazing the stuff that people would donate to us. And then right when the economy hits, like, I don't have that many toys to give away this year. It's crazy, you know, our winter coats. So, but we try to give back as much as we, you know, to the community. So, if you guys know any organization or any organizations that need these items, please give me a call. We have a website so you can ask for the donations.
Thanks. I didn't get the answer in your answers, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what was going on there. My other comment was because of the people down at the end, and I just felt like I needed to share this. I went to Europe in the spring, and one of the things I noticed in Europe was that everyone sits down on the grass in the park. And at every park that I went to, and I went to 7 different countries, and I thought, well, why don't we ever sit in our grass? But when you walk past parks here in the U.S., and I've lived in several different states and traveled pretty extensively, you may see 1 or 2 people sitting in the grass. In Europe, the grass is covered with people sitting there. And I was wondering, you know, why that didn't happen. And I think you guys answered it down there about not connecting to your spatial thing in your environment and things like that. And I think in Europe, they're a little bit more conscious of that. And they do connect to, this is my park, this is where I'm going to hang out, this is, you know, a good time a good thing to do in the afternoon. We're here, you know, that's a pretty park, and we walk by, or we walk through it, but we don't stop to sit down, or unless there's a bench or something, you know, we don't connect with the grass there, I guess. So I just felt like you guys answered that question for me. All right, I'm gonna open this up to you guys, because I'm all done talking, so we got one question over there. Do you want them to use the microphone for the questions in the audience?
If they could speak up.
Okay. And you can direct the question to the whole panel or one person, however you would like. So, Alan, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Alan Windrup, and one of the things I do is I coordinate an action alert network for UUs for social justice. It's multiple different issues. Environment is just one of them. The last action alert we had was on Locadia coal gasification plant. We're looking at one related to fracking legislation next. As I recall, I think the state Senate had passed the bill for the regulations and lost very narrowly in the House at the last day. This is probably for Christine. You expect that that's going to be coming up again in the November video session?
Unfortunately, we never really know what's going to happen in the veto session. It's so wild and crazy, but I know that we and our allies in the Illinois Environmental Council are going to try to bring it back up. If it doesn't come up in the November session, it will definitely be reintroduced next year. We've been doing, Illinois is the Wild West when it comes to fracking, and we don't want to turn into Pennsylvania and Ohio and other places that have had similar problems. So if we don't have intel yet, on November. If it comes up, we'll be lobbying like crazy because we're so close. And I can let you know, I can take your details and we can send you the action alert that we'll be doing or let you know about it. Otherwise, definitely in 2013. Absolutely, for sure.
Next question.
I was very interested in Jennifer's notion of different ways to communicate than the ways we communicate normally about environmental doom. And you gave a few examples, but I wondered if you could, I'd like to know maybe another example, and also how we can learn more.
So, let's see. I'm trying to think of some other good examples. Some of the things that we've learned from the research, and remarkably, actually, the research on people's opinions and attitudes about the environment have been remarkably unchanged over almost 20 years. When people are asked kind of why they care about the environment, that answer has stayed the same. The interesting thing is that the reason they care about the environment is typically for a couple top reasons. And it's not usually the reasons that scientists care, and that's where we kind of have some disconnect. So one of the reasons people often give for really caring about the environment is that it's because it's God's creation. And environmentalists just don't like, I mean, in general, you don't often see the Sierra Club standing up and saying, you know, God created this lake, so we have to protect it. It's just not something we do very much. And that's really one of the top reasons. That one of the second reasons, and I'm not trying to pick on you, Christine, but one of the second reasons is because they're very concerned about their children and their grandchildren and the life that they will lead. And there's a lot of concern around wanting to make sure that they have access to the same things that they had and see the same things that they had. So we talk a lot about protecting, making sure that your children have clean water well into the future, and your grandchildren have that as well. It's really important. The harder one, I think, and we've been experimenting with this, is the religious message around it being God's creation. And again, you have to be careful, and you really have to do it with a targeted audience. But for our Mississippi River work, we do quite a bit of work, obviously, throughout the whole river, but that includes the South, and it includes Mississippi and Louisiana and Arkansas. And we have typically actually found a lot of success and reaction to those messages there. So again, you have to be really careful. You can't make any assumptions, but it's about trying to relate to somebody else's values. One of the most important things that we ask people to always keep in mind is you are not your audience. And so you just got to keep remembering that, and that the reason that somebody might really care or sign the petition is just going to could be very different than your reason. And so trying to just sort of put yourself in that person's shoes, think about what they care about, think about why this might be important to them, is always just a helpful step that we recommend.
So one thing that Sierra Club, we had faith-based organizations involved as well with our coal-fired power plant fights. And one of the things, I'm a financial journalist. I've been working on a story about socially responsible investing and environmental, social, and governance investing. So I've been talking to lots of the Catholic faiths and Protestant faiths as well. And one of the things that's really reassuring is that the message of the mission can very easily translate to stewardship for the earth. And many churches are active, not only in the investing. Many churches have money that they need to invest for retirement, for operating funds. So they're being very careful about who they're investing in and the things they're supporting based on their mission. But what I was so happy to hear from all the faith-based investment organizations I just talked to, you guys can Google my story and see in a couple weeks, is that, the environment is so important in the same, very high up on the list of criteria. So if you're against production of weapons of destruction, human slavery, poverty, whatever it is, I was so reassured, and I think that's one other thing you can do too, is if you are active in your church or your faith or your temple, is to, if your particular place of worship is not active in environmental issues, you could be the instrument of change, right? Make it more important and raise it up.
I do actually have one. Considering that Chicago has just been through probably one of the worst heat spells in history, and the whole nation's currently going through a really devastating drought. Indiana's got 71% of their crops are gone. I think Illinois has got 68% of their crops. This is, in my eyes, a direct relation to climate change. For the whole group, have you guys ever considered, or do you use this as an example, what is currently going on right now in the country and in our lives right now? Do you use this as an example? Why or why not? For whoever.
So yes, if I have a meeting with a student or with anyone really and I'm trying to get them involved, I definitely mention things that are going on now. Greenland, 94% of the Greenland ice sheet melted in 4 days, like the droughts in the Midwest, rising sea levels, sure. Things that are going on now are definitely a part of recruitment because they're things that people can see. We have trouble thinking about the problems that are going to happen in 20 years or whatever, like big problems. Thinking about those is really urgent, but droughts that are happening next door are really urgent and they are something that you can see as a result of what's going on. And so that's a really important recruitment tool, I think.
And surprise, surprise, I want to take the communications angle of that question, but one of the things that we find is to try not to argue with people over what the cause is, or even sort of not what's happening, but we definitely don't try to argue over the cause because there is a lot of people that just, there's no way this is human cause, this is naturally occurring. Well, whatever the reason, it's happening and it's impacting how we live our lives. And so what we really recommend from a communication standpoint is we talk about what are the things that you can do and what are the changes that we can make to adapt and mitigate for climate change, because it's here, it's happening, and there's a lot of evidence that it's happening. We see the drought and things like that. And maybe it's not permanent, maybe it's a fluke and it's natural and all that sort of stuff, and 10 years from now we're going to look back at this and laugh. But it is happening now, and so we do need to think about the future, in the short term at least, on how we're going to handle these impacts. So yes, we are having more frequent and severe weather events, and that's really clear to people. And so there's not much arguing about that. So you don't necessarily talk to them about why or say that's climate change. You don't need to label it, but you say this is happening. And so, and here are some things that you can do on a daily basis to make a difference. And so that's just might be how we would approach it from a communication standpoint.
I think the lady who just finished speaking, you mentioned in the last election you supported Obama, and I'll ask the question to all the people on the panel. not irrespective of the coming election, but just based on his record to this point, how do you feel he's done? Has he?
Okay, so within the walls of this sanctuary, I supported Obama, I still support Obama, but politics have changed Mr. Obama. Perhaps they haven't changed him, but they've changed his methods. So there have been some things that, for instance, the delisting of the wolf, there was a political pact that went on behind that in order to protect a Western state senator. So the Endangered Species Act was breached for politics. And overall, I think Obama has been pretty good on most of our issues, our core issues, but he could have been a lot better. And so what I'm hopeful for the next cycle is that he gets a Congress that's reasonably cooperative, that isn't hostile on environmental issues, that there'll be more people like my Congress with Mike Quigley and Dick Durbin, and Mark Kirk is pretty good on Great Lakes issues too. So I think Obama, my grade, my personal grade, is like a lower B, but I have great hopes that for the second term he's going to do a lot better and be more proactive. But I'm afraid that my favorite president in my whole lifetime is still like a B-. But I'm hoping he'll go to A+.
So again, I know students and young people were really involved in getting Obama elected in 2008, and I certainly can't speak for students as a whole, but I mean personally, he has failed us on some climate issues. I mean, the tar sands pipeline, yes, in the end he said no, but really the way he said no was, I don't think I can make a decision right now, and kind of delayed it past the election, which hopefully he will continue to not allow for the pipeline once he's reelected, but I'm not sure that I have the world's highest hopes for that, and I think we all were a little disappointed that he didn't straight come out and say that the pipeline was a bad idea, especially since he was the president. He was the person who, when running for office, said he was going to bring the country off of oil. And he's also been the president who has supported a lot of offshore drilling, especially, we all know Deepwater Horizon, but prior to that, there was a lot of offshore drilling that he and his administration supported. And I hope that when he's not worrying about getting reelected, that, more issues he'll be able to do things that he said he would probably do back in 2008, but you never really know, and I'm not sure exactly how hopeful I am that, especially if we still continue to have a really divisive Congress and a populace that isn't putting the issues in the forefront, I'm not sure how good we're going to get.
Any other questions?
This kind of ties into the question that Jordan asked for the representative from the Gaia movement. With regard to clothes recycling, are any? I know that there's a lot of clothes that get sent to third world markets for reuse there. Are some of the clothes that you collect going to third world markets? It didn't seem like that was the case from your answer to Jordan's question, but I wanted to make sure to clarify that.
Yeah, a lot of people get confused with what happens, with the clothing. Basically, it comes to our facility, and we don't have a resale shop, like you said, like you asked. But basically, clothes do get shipped back to, third world countries like Africa, Central America. I don't think Mexico. We don't have in Illinois. We don't have like an actual recycling facility that will degrade these items. There is one in California, which I really want one in Illinois because it actually creates jobs. The reuse industry compared to the recycling industry creates 3 jobs. Don't quote me on this, but I read from the EPA. Recycling industry creates about 3 jobs. As for the reuse industry, it creates 10 to 11 jobs. So, comes to electronics, do-it-yourself resale shops, thrift shops, and stuff like that. So SOEX is a company that we work with in California, and they actually, from cotton to nylon, the biodegradable materials takes like years, about 30 to 40 years to degrade in the landfill. Cotton, it depends if it's like synthetic or not synthetic. I'm going off this. Anyways, but they actually produce like dust fuel from the clothes that we make. And I've actually gone to a clothes recycling conference where scientists made out of men's khaki pants computer keyboard. So these are like technology that we need to get into because it creates jobs. It's an actual green economy. So it's interesting what can happen with clothes. Again, I wish that there was technology that was promoted here in Illinois for these type of things. I think there is one in Wisconsin now too. Most of the clothes does get shipped to those to those countries, and then from there it's China. It's actually China that is one of the main buyers for this stuff. And then they go everything from like insulation to carpet and everything else that you can think of. So.
Any other questions? All right, we're going to wrap up. If you can give the panel an applause. Thank you guys so much for all of your expertise and knowledge and for sharing it with us. And I'm sure that if you guys brought any information with you or if you want to give out information, they'll be up here.